Hi, I'm Chantal Plowman and you're watching Wild Wednesday TV. Have you ever had the experience of walking around in your house and coming across a book that you bought some time ago and never read and thought, hey, I should probably read that book? Well, I just recently had that experience with this book by Julia Cameron. It's called Walking in This World. And Julia Cameron is also the author of The Artist's Way, which is a workbook to help you develop your creativity. And I did that workbook years ago, and it was a fabulous experience. And in The Artist's Way, and also in this Walking in This World, Julia suggests 2 regular items of homework to help our creativity flourish. Now, one is something that she calls morning pages, which are 3 pages of free-form writing that you do first thing in the morning, every morning, in order to clear out all the clutter from your mind. And the other is going on an artist date. Now, an artist date is a solitary adventure for at least an hour, and the idea is to go somewhere different or try something new, just to replenish your creative well. Because creativity comes from our own personal experience. So the artist date is to expand our experiences, and from that, our creativity. So Julia Cameron says that if the morning pages are assigned work, then the artist date is assigned play. Now, when I started reading Walking in This World, it reminded me of my experience 16 years ago when I worked through the Artist's Way workbook. And I was very good about doing my morning pages and the other assigned homework, but not always as good at doing the artist's date. That somehow seemed expendable. And so anyway, I think it's kind of funny how I valued the work above the play, but I recognize now that this playtime is really valuable for developing more creativity, but also for enriching my life and making it more fun and juicy and exciting. So even though I didn't always make time for my artist date, I can remember the ones that I did go on, and one in particular was very memorable. I went to Kensington, an area outside of downtown, to this cute vintage clothing shop that a friend had recommended. And I looked around the store for a while, and then I went to another shop that had some cute journals and fun stationery. So I bought a new journal and some colored pens. And I went to the coffee shop around the corner to get a tea and spend some time with my new journal. And I was just getting into the flow of my journal when I heard someone making a whole bunch of commotion in the cafe. So I looked up from my writing and I saw this man that looked really scruffy in his soiled, ripped clothing, and he was unshaven and talking really loudly as he looked at all the patrons in the cafe. And I saw him look right in my direction, and I quickly went back to my journal writing. But I had this uneasy feeling that I was being watched, and I looked up to see this character standing right above my table, watching me and commenting on my writing. So I went back to writing, and then all of a sudden I heard a scraping of the floor and looked up again to find him seated at my table. I noticed all the other patrons in the cafe were staring at us, probably wondering what was going to happen. And I didn't want to be rude, so I smiled and said hello, and I said I'm just busy with my writing, went back to my writing, because I wasn't too sure about his sanity, so I just thought I'd keep the conversation to a limited amount. But anyway, he kept talking and talking. I could hear him muttering, And finally I caught the better part of the words he was saying, and he's like, Ralph Klein stole my dog. Well, I couldn't stop myself before I looked up and repeated what he said to be sure I'd heard it correctly. Ralph Klein stole your dog? His eyes lit up, seeing I'd finally caught that he'd caught my full attention at the mention of our city's former mayor and at the time provincial premier having committed the offense of dog napping. Yeah, I was at the King Eddie Hotel one night. I tied up my dog outside and I saw Ralph Klein come in the bar. And when he left, I went out shortly after and I saw him leaving with my dog. I couldn't stop myself from continuing the conversation. You're telling me that our premier, Ralph Klein, actually stole your dog from outside the King Eddie Hotel? He smiled, seeing that I understood what he was saying. Yep, he comes into the King Eddie all the time. Why do you have to steal my dog? Well, at this point, I looked around the cafe and all eyes were on our table, and I'm sure everyone was wondering what was going to happen next. So my new friend was already on to another rant, and I decided that was probably my cue to end my artist date. So I thanked the man for his company and bid him farewell and wished him best of luck in retrieving his dog from the premier. So once I was outside on the street, I totally appreciated the cool winter air on my flushed cheeks, and I was wondering what to make of my experience. And I rounded the corner of the street to where my car was parked midway down the block, and I was happy to hit the button for my remote car starter on this cool day and see the taillights on my car light up. And I was just anticipating getting into my warm, cozy car. But as I approached it, I suddenly saw my car moving and leaving its parked position. Well, I couldn't believe it. My car started to drive down the street on its own. I was in absolute shock. How could this happen? Well, ridiculously, I started running after my car. My mind rushed to make sense of the whole situation. Well, maybe that's not my car. Maybe it's somebody else that just pulled out. But no, that was my car. It looked exactly like my car. So there could be no mistake. Well, maybe someone was stealing my car. And what was I going to do about it? Chase the car thief down the street on foot? Well, before I was able to put all these frantic thoughts together, I registered that my car was in fact attached to a tow truck. The truck had come to a stop at the end of the block, and the driver had got out of the truck to come and examine why this car that he was towing had suddenly started and was running. Well, I continued sprinting like an Olympic athlete to try and catch up with him. And before he left, so I was stammering out, like, "What? That's my car, that's my car. What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm towing it." I'm like, "Why?" Was my natural response. He said, "Because you were parked in front of someone's driveway." Well, I looked back to my parking spot to confirm what he was saying, and I could see that the driveway had been iced over and there was a skiff of snow on top. So it looked like it was just part of the yard. And what must have once been the garage was now a renovated part of the house. So it didn't look like a driveway. So I pleaded my case to the tow truck driver, and he just shrugged and said he had to impound it, but if I paid the fee right then and there, he'd let me take my car so I didn't have to come down to the lot. I don't think he really wanted to run the risk of my car coming to life behind his tow truck, so he spared me. Well, when I finally got into my reclaimed car, I stopped to assess my artist date. And at first glance, it was a total bust. It cost me around $200 for my car. But on the other hand, if that man hadn't come to talk to me in the coffee shop, I wouldn't have left when I did, and I would have returned to find that my car was gone. And in Julia Cameron's books, she also talks about something called synchronicity, which is the simultaneous occurrence of events that appear significantly related, but with no discernible causal connection. So I realized that my coffee shop friend's appearance was really a form of synchronicity, because if he hadn't come, I wouldn't have left when I did, and I wouldn't have retrieved my car. So actually, I thought it was a good artist date. Plus, it was an interesting experience that I thought would make a good story. So back to this idea of going on the artist date that's in Walking in This World and in The Artist's Way. I think that's something that I'd like to reinstate, because I think that it's a great challenge, and I feel like I need to refuel my creative reserves and just get outside of my bubble a little bit. So, and also I feel like I need some adventure, and this weekly artist date is a really good way to do that. So now I'd like to ask you for your help. Can you give me some ideas of some places I could go or things I could do for my next artist date? I would love to hear from you. And if you come up with a great idea, why don't you go on an artist date yourself? And if you do, I'd love to hear about your experience. So please comment below and let us know. You can go to our media tab on womenignitinglifestreams.com and comment below this video. And when you're there, if you're not already, be sure to subscribe and become a true wild woman. Thanks.